Hello to all of you brand new incoming and returning sports club officers. I am your 2023-2024 SCC president, but more importantly, today I'm going to give you some useful information about the funding proposal process. This is one of the most fundamental and commonly exercised functions of the SCC year to year. So let's dive in. Here in Google Drive, I'm going to do a quick search for something called the All Members folder, which is really easy to track down and you should all have access to it. Here, we should have another folder called Funding Proposals. And oh, look at that. It's full of great funding proposal information and also past ones to use as references. But I'm most interested in this down here, which is going to be your template. So if you're planning to make a funding proposal, go ahead and make a copy of this and fill it out according to your own club's information and needs. So this is a great place to start. It has pretty much all of the information you're going to need to put together a really great presentation. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and take a look at the official SCC Constitution and look at the funding proposal section, which I believe is Article 6. So to be eligible for a funding proposal, your clubs must meet the criteria for SCC voting, basically being an active club and meeting those requirements, having no outstanding reports from previously funded events, which if you do have that, go ahead and speak with Grace to get that handled. And then you must fundraise before submitting that funding proposal. So as long as you meet those qualifications, you can then refer to the SCC tier chart to determine what your funding cap is for the academic year. This can also be located in the All Members folder, and your funding cap will depend on your club's tier, which may have changed since the last semester. So make sure you look at your tier chart for your funding cap. This is updated at the beginning of every semester, so it may not be in the All Members folder yet, but it will be after the first General Council meeting. This being said, there's no reason you can't submit a funding proposal months before an event. Even before submitting an event request on MyRaft, you can secure that funding. Securing this funding is going to be very helpful in your planning process, especially for travel events. So you can always submit a funding proposal while an event is still pending in MyRaft. You will need to request to put a funding proposal on the agenda for the next executive board meeting and general council meeting before you present a funding proposal at one. Funding proposals need to be submitted by noon on the Thursday before the executive council meeting that you will present your funding proposal at. And at this meeting, you will present to the executive board and you may get some feedback. Any feedback you get is because we also want you to get this money. And so we want to help you be prepared to present to the general council before they vote on your funding proposal. Now, back to the template. Actually making your funding proposal is pretty simple and it can be fun because all you're doing is showcasing how awesome your club is and what you've done in the past. You're going to have a title slide with some pictures of your club and then a slide highlighting your volunteer and community work. This could be local tabling events, cleanups, workshops with elementary or high school students, whatever your club does to volunteer and serve the community. Next, you will highlight your club's fundraising history, events you've done in the past, how much you've earned, whether or not you met your fundraising requirements in the last semester or this semester, and what fundraisers you're planning to do for the remainder of this year. Next, you'll have a slide with some background about how you represent CSUMB. This could be scrimmages, games, or competitions you've played, any leagues that you might be associated with. And then we are going to move on to the numbers portion. You will need to supply the current balance of funds that you have in your club account, and then describe how you're planning to use those funds. This is important because if the council sees you have $10,000 in your club account and you're still asking for SCC money, they will want to know what's happening with that $10,000 and why you're not using it instead. Next, you're going to need to include your out-of-pocket costs. This is the money that each of your club players has to pay out of pocket as a member of your club. You can break this down by semester, monthly, or yearly, however best fits your club layout. This should include things like uniform costs, coach payments, membership, competition payments, anything that's an individual expense. Now for the slide you've been waiting for. This is your funding proposal slide. Here you'll see the exact amount you're asking from SCC, and you're going to break that down into how many categories you need. So for example, if you are presenting a funding proposal to go to a game, and you would need to include hotel rooms. How many hotel rooms are you getting? How many nights are you staying? Do you need airfare? How many students need to fly? How much are those plane tickets for the weekend you're planning to go? This is very important to be as specific as possible and account for tax. Err on the side of caution with these numbers and include a note saying that any remaining funds that have not been used will go back into the SCC account just in case things are less expensive than you believe they will be. Here's the time where you would put in your rental car fees, and if you are renting a car, you will be reimbursed for gas. But if you are taking personal vehicles, then you will be reimbursed for mileage, which luckily for you does pay a little bit more than gas would, but the calculation is going to be different. So please check with TC or Grace for those numbers. Now, if your funding proposal is for buying a piece of gear and not related to travel, you know the exact price that it's going to be, and it's totally fine to just go with that price. You will add tax on, shipping if that's necessary, but it's a lot more simple than doing a funding proposal for travel. Thank you all so much for taking the time to listen to this training video. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to one of your executive board officers, including myself, TC, or Grace. Thank you again.